Hello, Americans. I studied something I had means to it. I can show you guys all because I studied how James Madison and our plural founders detailed why not to have anyone entertained plural as one of themselves, plural as our founders, plural, pretended as a known name. They had to counter extort the other founders. See, when they pretend that's debatable, anyone besides James Madison pretended as a known founder's name, plural, they're used to measure and maintain that self-value collusion slash S with everyone with how the hyper-foreign trained our campuses at countries A through Z. Here, Anthony. This is why and how the suburbs from America to Russia to Ukraine, they almost looks almost exactly the same. The suburbs were designed before America's founders were born by the breaching method that had torture, extortion, and slavery roles only permitted northern colonies and southern colonies more than 13. You guys have our founders framed for slavery as tools by worse. Forgiveness is because don't leave out the by worse part or everyone gets it wrong. Everyone. You have the same people speaking about, oh, we want accountability. You guys have rules of predicate acts with facts. Were we not told somewhere to see the whites of eyes? One of the only things we're all told. The books are sick. Why don't we just pay attention to how? Because they're pretending it's debatable. That's what we have to address. The people attacking the campuses and our founders and the people defending them, they're framing them for slavery together. Oh, but I was defending them. You don't even know our founders. Our founders, plural. They declassified why and how not to refer to them as anyone besides James Madison. They knew there would be everyone scenting for the breaching method. In other words, right on social media, they can't help it. Oh, the networks, the differences of guilt here or there. They knew that they would pretend other as styles, needs, natures, and logic. They just have to avoid that. I don't understand. Change what people say about World Trade Center predicate acts. Fake them as collusion slash S. WFSB sought me out behind my back. I caught them stealing my identity, putting me to fake conversations with themselves and with others as collusions, forcing child abusers, leaders, and kids at the time, and more then and now, with the one proven principal child abuser, and it's more people involved with the intelligence, how they're with malls and shopping centers, and the campuses, including too everyone making confessions about other people, and then they're confirming things to both sides. But in other words, the interbranch are having things confirmed to them wrong with their sources. There are leaders of kids that are repeating fake things about me with their kids. It's also fake for them since I was a kid. Increasingly, people next to Brian Bonin with the Board of Education and his neighbors with wire crimes and Weathersfield Police. Their roles with like different mescaline and different kinds of drugs with Hartford Hospital. And with his neighbors with some sexual medical offenders of kids. I never saw him on campus in my life, Brian Bonin. And they have people with the Board of Education involved with retired Weathersfield police chiefs and intimate ties involved with that. Prosecutors, judges, their kids. At the same time with the principal child abuser, Whiting Forensics. They have more people with West Hartford campuses with the name O'Neill, further involved with Whiting Forensics with the World Trade Center attack, and with predicate acts after that to hide it, and ongoing. And now this is also why you guys are forced to draw a map from old Weathersfield founding locations to Central Connecticut State University all along Route 175. The same names are collusion slash S all along Route 3. And then Mr. Neville, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed. It's plausible that he knows to an extent that he's collusion with more than just stealing my poem. He might have faked conversations with me too, because he's got a bunch of people along Route 3 involved with child abusers, and the same names were involved with elderly homes in elderly programs. And there are proofs that there were the veterans' homes. Look how the veteran homes look just like those buildings behind rappers and rap videos. The suburbs were designed for torture, extortion, slavery method our founders declassified it as. They were designed to cause negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. That same method that had been sustained upon the countries that were involved in trench tail. That's what motivated to them. You want to know what motivated those sick countries that have sick rolls with that here? Look how the North and South take the credit for it and blame our founders for it. Look who's controlling the education. The same one thing that had it entrenched there too. Since before religious messengers from off the campuses, their fact, truth, nature, quality aspects became abridged. I'm not saying we blame. Say everyone jumps in with blame, guilt to leave out the breaching method, which also the discernment of it comes through collusion /S. That's what in other words, and delusion. So you guys have mass delusions at the same time, where you assess the relativity of the hyper-evidential, for example, so to speak, even if you don't want to call it the hyper-evidential, having black pupils, whites of eyes. Then you're going to wonder why. No, you guys have sick takes on American history, blaming our founders for slavery. Don't wonder why the kids value words like MFer. In other words, try to figure out how to counter, overcome. Not honesty spoke for the suburbs, let alone New York City, cities across the world. From America to Russia to Ukraine, the suburbs were built for a torture, extortion, slavery method. And identity grounds identity of relationship to itself to cause negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. For people, the only means to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and nature anyway. More and more to value, the only means to do it to cause criminal and seditious natures of means to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. To bring down the price on pigs. To bring down the price on eggs. They're measuring and maintaining the breaching method. We have this separated from what James Madison's our founder. He detailed about how and why they wanted nothing to do with slavery. He detailed about how and why they forced the subjects. Oh, you want to speak up about it? You have to speak up about it in the internationally monitored conversations, or through where I have location /S, where the internationally companies, even when they're not present, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the news, all collusion /S at the same time with the same self-value sequence shifts, predicate acts with facts methods, 6 nature methods /S collusion. This live stream is also the theorem of relativity /hyper-relativity. We have 2 eyes. As a human species body of individual bodies, we have 2 sexes. And 2 eyes and 2 sexes are generated across species bodies. We are shown that we are distinct from the other species bodies, but we are also non-distinct with them. And we are simultaneous with them. But also per that which is an identity of simultaneous nature, which is neither us nor them. Generating and having generated why and how all these different species have these qualities, aspects in nature. Generated not by us nor them, with all exceptions and demonstrations /S with the same thing. Humanity didn't invent why even the insects look like they have 2 eyes. They have an extent of consciousness too. They can tell if we're coming for them, we're trying to be nice to them. Little bugs. See, we have it all. We're in a semi-ancient trap that enables a semi-ancient method /S. And I'm referring to 3 parts of how nature wants us to be syntax nature, showing us how 3 parts of time are bound. And I refer to it as the semi-ancient because even with in our own time, we know the databases were criminally foreign influenced /hyper-criminally foreign influenced. We are simultaneous. We are distinct from, non-distinct from, simultaneous with other species bodies, but also /per further identity of simultaneous nature, distinct identity of simultaneous nature, nature's identity, but also its complete identity of relationship to itself is here concentrated further, where it's all equal positive to an extent to all parts of space / existence. And there's a further temporary concentrated special difference that Earth has, where everything's aligned, where we can have answers to ourselves. Ones that more and more we are valuing replaced. And that's more and more simultaneously having been replaced. And it's more and more speculation only capable of his speaking through and as systems. Tactilitarian from its own when its own is also causing positive value nature progressions, acts, and nature's means out of nowhere here. Agreements. People from countries A through Z look at these cities, these suburbs. We have means way beyond this. In other words, you guys can't get the economics right till you get this, right? You can't speak for the Constitution unabridged. You have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents that a certain type of victim / hyper victim is only capable of appreciating, or relative to where and to how that people are sensed and adapted to, even if they try to speak about the black pupils, whites of eyes, correlation by the breaching method that we know is discernible, but left out. Because the names of the people of the sciences and of the industries, the names of the people of differences. There's not one person that jumps, people fake jump in, use their own difference, other people's difference to pretend it's debatable. It's not debatable. This is about a predicate acts with facts method, a breaching method that James Madison told about. We have this pretended debatable. They want the knowledge, they're using the knowledge of good and evil, no, in ways they can't afford to have defended, and have an honest debate about the part after the part of the Old Testament, for example, that says only defend right here. Where the names of the people of sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. In the countries that are fighting with each other, they have psychiatry tied to courts, into interbranch, into prisons. And this hyper-foreign showed them here and there how to read the sciences. It appreciated what James Madison and the founding plurals, the plural founders who didn't have the security to leave their names, which is only one of the things they declassified for us to understand. That's forced, replaced, or we are sensed and adapted to through our own before a breaching method. It's not by accident. See, Michael Cohen. I want to mention because I didn't put out the link. But these people just calling this phobic against that. How long are they going to have a sexual differences rights? Like, in other words, plus, in other words, in the bathroom, no one should be going there anyway. If they want to have that, in other words, that they're changed. This is breaching method measures and maintains. They're not using correlation / hypercorrelation. Because nature is teaching us things. It's showing us the value of, it is distinctly the value of male from the value of female. But it is also non-distinctly. And it is also the difference of that. Equally increasingly valued. That's one of the things it's showing us. Because its complete identity of relationship to itself is inseparable from all things, even if you make them up like art. It is inseparable from, while as the order of the smallest finite detail, as the value of it, and or as the order of the finite, distinctly but non-distinctly from how it is the active and or grouped quality aspects in nature of your art or of reality. And distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously / hyper-simultaneously from how it is the simultaneous. Everything to show us the identity of the hyper-simultaneous nature. To an extent, this is discernible. But it's discernible that people, with the names of the people of the sciences, are used to pretend things are theory that are not, and things that are wrong that are not. And so this breaching method already had remote uses of every identity of integrity, showing that they need to keep, even though no one wanted collusion /S with all location /S use /S by the breaching method. Northern colonies and southern colonies, sickly distinctly, they were possessions, but sickly non-distinctly too, they had roles with those crazy laws. Even slavery, north and south. Even to this day, obligations sacred for them to make clearer than day what was declassified, why and how James Madison wanted nothing to do with slavery. Why and how he explained how they were measuring and maintaining everyone. When they would adapt to the types of things, they would be sensed and adapted to, even if they're a majority of people, even if they're any united country. We are in a semi-ancient trap. I refer to it as semi-ancient rather than ancient. Again, because of how three parts of time are bound. There is an extent of the past that you know was true always. Not just like your memories. You know that was real. And there's an extent of the past that you know you don't know about, but you know it was. And it's generated by that same thing, generating species bodies of individual bodies with group differences. Generated by it in its system, or it demonstrates we're using an abridged system. We're using abridged systems. It demonstrates the moment we will be using an abridged system. It demonstrates the past was using abridged systems, and that's the reason why. There are criminal foreign influence / hypercriminal foreign influences that we have logistically, syntactically, and syntactic nature leveraged upon ourselves, Black pupils. But Anthony Wall, I'm an expert on the nature of English grammar. And on communications, I did a double major before the World Trade Center attack. And then I started to do a master's degree. I already had the people involved with the World Trade Center attack before and after the attack. Recorded how used remotely 3 ways: criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence. Central Connecticut State University had collusions with many tied directly to and as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. All sides of criminal and civil cases originally and still. And the interbranch names, their family members, their sources. This the news at the same time, the same thing, the difference of the intelligence there next to them. People who answer the phone, people with the digital. Whiting forensics also has collusions with changing, faking, hiding, and obfuscating digital evidences and hyper-evidential evidences. See, we have Black pupils, whites of eyes. For example, this is hyper-evidential, where and how we have simultaneously the breaching method left out and replaced. We have a breaching method that our founders declassified. A breaching method had reassigned when nature communicates with Black pupils, whites of eyes, when nature is not. It only itself as criminal and citizens nature, criminally foreign influence, let alone criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence. Even though our founders didn't use the phrase hypercriminally foreign influence, as far as I know, we could discern it. We could discern it distinctly that way. There were laws against all women. There were laws against black and white slavery. Northern colonies, southern colonies. And we know it was sustained against Native Americans. What everyone has missed is how it had been sustained and enforced, entrenched there too. That's why how England doesn't even remember the history of English. How you doing? Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. So everyone misses. I will put a link to a video. We have Black pupils, whites of eyes. and a breaching method reassigned with that communicated. It had like Spain, France, England, they had more colonies than 13 entrenched in America. I mean, before America was America. And they had only rules with slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies, again, more than 13, only permitted. And then America's founders were born. But this is not clear because there's a hyper-foreign that taught everyone how to speak at campuses from off them to maintain. It was a part with all that. So everything was designed to keep us used remotely from abroad and to keep them used remotely from abroad too. And then even if they make any country, any grouping of countries, it has and has had all locations, areas, and states. The only people who could operate the phenomenon of the names of the countries of the human species body, of individual bodies, only known having had people tell them to use it as system stack filter from how nature makes distinctions with that to us, with relativity as relativity / hyper-relativity. Slavery most definitely, yes, in other words, they're talking about the prices. They're speaking about through politics. They're speaking about economies. But they have replaced what our founders communicated about how we had to begin, when we had to start from nowhere. And we had to start with slavery and still entrenched because it was a breaching method still entrenched. James Madison detailed to us, nobody had free speech. That's one of the reasons we're not supposed to entertain anyone besides James Madison to pretend to have been one of the known founders, plural, one of their names. Because they had a plan, and therefore they had to force everyone at the same time to help with the Declaration of Independence. But they had to hide that. So instead of speaking about how everyone was counter-extorted at the same time, George Washington, he directed us to be honest about his extortion. And they didn't want James Madison declassified. The real founders wanted nothing to do with slavery. They wanted nothing to do with the abridgment. See, we have people that are saying, well, which amendment says that? The Constitution, we're supposed to get it unabridged, and we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And we're not supposed to leave out the collusion / us with the databases interbranch and intercampuses and intra-campuses. They never stopped being used remotely and shown needs to hide that. Past, active, and things to come by using predicate acts and facts method / s collusion / s. See, there are methods of organized crimes that there are proofs. I'm not even a lawyer. I've recorded lawyers too since founding. There have been collusions forcing criminal insidious natures of A, therefore B, and collusions changing and faking what was actually discovered and proven, and making the wrong outcomes. Even when they make have rules with the right outcomes, they have collusions with the crime scenes and natures of organized crimes, and screening of the breaching method / s, and not just, in other words, it keeps other things other than themselves, our country's A through Z, things like criminal foreign influences blamed wrongly until they are correct more and more. And then it makes both sides self-value that. When they don't. Just like when people don't self-value collusion / s, changing and faking what James Madison communicated. But the campuses abused everyone because they were from off themselves. The campuses abused too. The Constitution, Judge Napolitano said the Constitution has a part that says we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And Marbury versus Madison, I learned from an accomplished pro se litigant, it means real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. See, Interbranch has been putting fake things in transcripts at the same time with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the crime scenes and news at the same time in their campuses and others in the list to keep from being screened, to keep from discernment in the future too. The breaching method use of /s of location /s. See, the names of the people, the sciences. That's why it says at the beginning of the Old Testament, per science. It says, only defend right here where the names of the people, the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. But it knew that the people that would defend the Old Testament would defend it wrongly as collusion /s, with differences, with the inside, the factory, or also with the people attacking them. All natures of difference have stayed collusion /s through and as while entertaining systems tactical terror from the one we long at, countries A through Z. There are proofs that Alpha and Omega and Yin Yang were revealed together, and to teach about what nature teaches, about how nature shows us that it is functional, being itself the invisible but still discernible distinctly from how it is the hyper-invisible but still discernible. And so English was revealed to be taught this way, where the parts of speech are about the invisible but still discernible, / hyper-invisible but still discernible. Like that's why we could discern the body of the hyper-invisible but still discernible itself. Where and how there are two participle natures manifest, for example, as names hyper additional for a verb, no, too. Everyone has black pupils, whites of eyes. There are people that came on my street from other parts of town who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with the military, with black themed people, and with some KKK themed at Trinity College. That where Tucker Carlson went, for example, and with some Italian themed, Latino themed, inter and intracultural, they have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders. And then they pretend hate or racism or counters to it. They have both sides of issues. This is relative to how it's recorded and influenced by how names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts and the interbranch at the same time and news, they have same self-guided sequence shifts and wire crime acts and methods and mail crime acts and methods and roles keeping other things, others, or selves blamed right for where nature itself and proper science and our founders communicate for us to blame the breaching method. But discernment of that comes through collusion /s. But see, mandated law is not followed. They're using predicate acts with facts methods recorded, where they're pretending not to realize things, and they're changing and faking and hiding what people say about World Trade Center predicate acts. Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves. They have a whole bunch of people like tied to a Joshua, people with the name Joshua, and a Ray Kalal is one of the ones with syntax on YouTube, who's involved also with the Joshua Julian on the Facebook page of a principal upskirt nature, who's involved with other digital crimes and sexual and medical offenders of kids, with a Phil Kalala with a whiting forensics, and others involved with them through time with news locations and intelligence next to them. Involved also with a bunch of people next to the state capitol and at the state capitol. Involved increasingly with election spots, and multiple police departments are and have been used remotely criminally foreign influence with the same house /s. Involved with multiple courts, family members, personally and professionally involved with them, with the proven child abusers, leaders of kids. And the police interbranch refusing to identify themselves, falsifying with police reports. They're confessing they put falsified police reports and they put a charge with no writing. And they try to make a fake exception and they make confessions about how they switch arresting officers' names and they mix it up intercities. Central Connecticut State University has a number of family members from East Hartford Intelligence involved with a Mike Pandol. And wherever they've been speaking in records, he has roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions with people involved with the World Trade Center attack and with America's side with it And they have their family's roles with town line drive and conjunctions to it into that and other town lines. It is manifest that way because it is exploited for how the police departments are used remotely criminally foreign influence. Right where there are victims, we see all the types of people are types of victims / hyper victim. And this method keeps us. Oh, well, look, you're attacking the police. You guys are changing, faking what I said. Get them off the fake conversations with me and get them on paper because this Mendez police brothers and they're educators since they were kids. They have collusions with people that were involved with body dumping spots. And, planting evidence on all sides of my house and rolls with their own differences and other people's differences, where they have differences, rackets, collusion / us with the breaching methods employment of them. The breaching method reassigned Black people's rights of I syntax to be anything other than attending to where and how James Madison told us to attend to how the breaching method assigned such, and also use their own differences and other differences to defend their identity, their titles, things like that. As styles, logic, natures of logic can't defend that and else at the same time. So you're talking about non-facts. I'm talking about the first most principal fact. James Madison and our founders, plural, directed us to understand why and how none of them had the security to let us know any of their names, plural, besides James Madison's. And he declassified, or had declassified for himself and for them, why they had to counter-extort everyone at the same time and force everyone to take part with the Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution, the Constitutional Convention. And James Madison and those plural founders forced the Civil War. Both the North and the South were not allowed to speak up about slavery, about the crazy laws against all women, against the crazy laws against Native, unless through internationally monitored conversations, simultaneously juxtaposed with the interests at all locations with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, international companies, all kinds of ways. Worse than that, criminally foreign influence. There's a hyper-criminally foreign influence still involved, right through world wars. So there are people that pretend passions and emotions regarding isms and, that person's a phobic or ism. They're pretending passions and emotions because they are shown they need to hide life aggressions tied to where and how the identities of integrity are bridged. We all agree about this. Only dishonest people come up and pretend they don't agree. We don't hunger and thirst to look at the buildings behind people in rap videos or the suburbs. The suburbs. If you guys understood American history, the colonists, while it was against the law for them to speak up about building anything different outside of internationally monitored conversations in the sense and sensibilities of overt criminal enterprise, private ones, international companies, international countries, and that which was using them and everyone remotely. We have things we agree about like that. Just the money little kids would be given to help you guys to fund their future with nature. The whole ocean's polluted. We have means like that, better than free, to do things to the ground and then look and sense together. Well, this is a different kind of thing. Okay, put down a plan, put something down. This will go through the mid-moment. We have to do a species body plan at the same time, though, or we play it against ourselves. This breaching method needs other things, others ourselves. This breaching method knew that nature shows us the affronts on Native Americans, the affronts on all women, the affronts on Black peoples, white survivors. They're about a whole bunch of different things, but they're all constantly together at the same time value as a human factory nature breaching method. And this is the theorem of relativity / hyper-relativity. We are distinct from the other species bodies, but we are non-distinct from them. And we are simultaneous with them. But with group differences generated between species bodies. So we could discern by an identity of simultaneous nature, a distinct, further distinct, therefore hyper-simultaneous nature, therefore relativity. There are other species bodies with two eyes too. There are other species bodies that have two sexes. It is generated by nature's identity, its identity of relationship to itself. And the difference of that value here, its way, or it is forced away from here as forced space nature transfer. But we are forbid these words. They have an ongoing assault collusion /s as an array, as people guised as supports for types of rights, and people countering them, including the sexual ones, within the subjects in the news, who have collusions with the databases at those campuses, and with tactically distinct, but tactically exploited, tactically juxtaposed, totally distinct natures of organized crimes. That nature can be used, science can be used to show us were generated by and through collusions with predicate acts with facts, with effect predicate acts with facts method /s. In many ways, I tell best box things. I teach us things, but long. So CBS attached me to fake conversations with themselves. And they have a lawyer. They have lawyers named Trantola and Trantola. I barely had any words at all with them. They change what I said, and they hide and change and fake what people say with as their collusions with forced child abusers, leaders of kids' roles, identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of scams with all sides of criminal and civil cases, lawyers, the crime scenes, the courts, the interbranch, the news at the same time. It's all kinds of ways that at the same time they're kept criminally vulnerable since they were kids abused too by people coming through campuses like that needs to sense that are used by the breaching method to sense self-value collusion /s. Anyone not pretending that, other things, others ourselves, were the causes of the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence. You guys have our founding plan replaced at your campuses. And the breaching method showed them they need to hide that. And they need to keep that, and shows them actively they have to keep that blamed on other things other than themselves. And so they blame it on the kids, while the kids are being shown rightly to blame it on the campuses, or to ignore it too at the same time, other ways too. Everyone ignores it because we forgive everyone because we understand they have only heard people speak abridged, from what we know since we were little kids. Takes on American history and nature uses to get over on us. So we all agree about things. The research campuses and locations are recorded how kept criminally foreign influenced by a whole bunch of different tactically distinct natures of organized crimes and collusions with the breaching method that needs to keep its roles with it's part of your method. It's part of your motivations, no matter who you are, where and how you would decide that having black pupils, whites of eyes, and those basic principles we know aren't or hasn't been enough to discern, being used remotely, the syntax of our American history experts to appreciate how they were motivated to be collusions against themselves and others with obligations by their words, their syntax, their distinctions. You have to understand how James Madison and our plural founders, they knew that the names of the people of the sciences would pretend that the founders were the people that were a part of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitutional Convention, rather than the plural unnamed founders and James Madison and what he detailed about what was entrenched here. And they can't afford that discern now still. The breaching method chose them because they are still using those predicate acts with facts methods only capable of being per the method. They have to self-value. Collusion /s, that's with self-value collusion. When they say America was formed to go against dictators, the North and South still had roles with slavery only permitted They're out of their minds. In other words, the little kids, they need to hear it real. Let me speak for them, please. So the presidents, Mr. Kennedy and President Trump, they know more than me about a lot of things. But I study this thing in this way, this fundamental thing. And every year since the World Trade Center attack, I've recorded there's a predicate acts and facts method /S, intercities, how the interbranch locations are and have been used remotely. They should fear God to pretend I'm saying that disrespectful to their titles, to those titles. No, these are people that are criminally foreign influenced / hyper-criminally foreign influenced, but they were abused since they were kids. That's why get them on paper, one name in sequence. And I want a response for the confessions and what I caught them doing with the campuses and all the names that they tied to me at the same time, intercities, all kinds of wire crime acts and methods too with the phones too, not just of the networks. They have wire crimes with their phones too, the people that answer them, and digital crimes with whiting forensics. The FBI has collusions with Facebook, with Hotmail. And then see, that was insidious how all of a sudden my old Hotmail came onto the TuneCore page, and all of a sudden the passwords on there. People involved with the World Trade Center attack and Tucker Carlson's network, and we have the FBI and various natures of federal criminals also next to Tucker Carlson's campus and added, involved with interbranch switching and forging names. There's an officer who used the name Darth Vader, involved with the untimely death at the campus with a bunch of in Hartford, which is a bunch of people on Wethersfield through time, involved with other untimely deaths, and one at that time connected and brought up the child abusers campus, and a Joshua Stryker too. I don't know what he said yet, but he has collusions with a whole bunch of different natures of organized crimes at the same time. That's how I'm waiting to get him on paper because I never had a verbal conversation with them. They're trying to pretend other. He has roles with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all sides of criminal and civil cases, and people with the state judicial branch offices involved planting predicate acts at my campuses and other people's campuses. All should fear God.